Hi everyone, I hope you guys are all well. Autumn has finally arrived. My favourite time of year, and autumn and winter I really love to do lots of reading, just as I usually do all throughout the year, but I feel a lot more a need and urge to read and writing as well. So I'm really excited to see what books I'm going to be reading throughout this time and what writing I'm going to get up to as well. But anyway, enough about that. I'm here to talk about the book I've been reading for the past, well, it'd be 4 days now. But I actually finished this book yesterday, so I actually read it in 3 days. And that is The Dry by Jane Harper. As I said, I finished it yesterday evening, but I was so in such an emotional state following this book that I couldn't film my review, so I decided to wait until I finished work today to film this. So basically this is Jane Harper's debut novel. She's a British author, but she lives in Australia. And this is her debut novel. She does a series of crime books, and I know she's got 3 books now published, and I know the main character, Aaron Falk, who is in this book, her first book, is also the main character in the second book, but I don't know about her third one. So yeah, it would be interesting. I gather Aaron is the investigator in the third one, but I've no clue. I've only read this one. So The Dry is set in Australia in this little town that's in a 2-year drought. And the Hadler family, which is Karen, Billy, Charlotte and Luke. Billy and Charlotte are the children. Karen and Luke are the adults, have been killed. Charlotte was left. She was unharmed, but all of the other 3 were killed, and everyone believes that Luke, because of the situation of where his body was found, the condition he was in, etc., that Luke had killed Karen and Billy in a murder-suicide. And Aaron has arrived for the funeral of the family. It's been 20 years since he was last in their town. He was driven out of town because of a situation when he was a teenager, which all of the people in the town still believe he was heavily involved in, and so they don't trust him whatsoever. But he gets asked by Luke's parents, that they who had basically kind of helped raise Aaron, they ask him to look into the case, and in going through the things that were found, there were things that don't add up, and so he starts digging into this whole situation, and various things unfold, and he is determined to discover who killed the Hadlers. So that's the premise of the book. I have to say, I was absolutely blown away by this book. Now, when I first went into it, I knew it was a debut novel, and I wasn't, you know how sometimes you can go, okay, this is a debut novel, and you can feel like, oh, well, they're probably going to make possibly these mistakes, or it won't quite be structurally sound, or, you know, characters might not be quite there, because it's a first book. You know, I don't know if you would call that being snooty or something. I have no idea, but I couldn't help but wonder if that was the case, just with me in general, when I hear it that it's a debut novel. But I kind of went into this not knowing what to expect whatsoever, and I didn't I didn't let myself focus on things such as that. I think that when you read a book series, though, you can see if a writer progresses and such, and sometimes you can really tell if it's a first novel of a writer. But honest to God, I could. If I had read this not knowing it was a debut novel, I would not have thought that it was one. She writes it absolutely beautifully. It's so perfectly constructed, and I fell hook, line, and sinker for quite multiple massive lies that happen in this book. Um, I I didn't see things coming. I kind of went through the mill with emotions and everything with this book, and ended up absolutely bawling my eyes out for a character called Ellie in the ending chapter. Jane, I'm really, really, really impressed by this book. Uh, I adored everything that she came up with. I think, I think especially what I'm, I'm trying to figure out what the word is that I'm trying to say, and I can't say it. I can't find it in my head. Writing about a country that I don't know at all. Sometimes when you go into novels that are set in places that you don't know at all, it can be a little difficult because I don't necessarily understand the terrain. I don't necessarily understand the sights, the smells, um, the landscape, the weather patterns, all that kind of stuff. But as soon as I started reading this, I very much felt I knew exactly where I was. I knew exactly what the area looks like. I know exactly how scorched the ground is, um, how low the number of animals on a farm could be because of the heat is taking them, how dry the earth is, scorching on the ground, all that kind of thing. I felt it, and so I just fell in love with it. With this book. That I want to do a reading from this. I'm trying very hard to review this book without giving away any spoilers, which is very, very hard to do. So I think it's about time that I do a reading. So to give you an idea of her writing and everything, this is a scene where Falk is at the Hadler's house and he is helping Luke's parents to clean out the house. Basically, the house has been handed back over to them, and so they need to go through all the belongings and everything and get rid of what they don't want. And this is Barb, who is Luke's mother, talking to Falk in the house, and her husband Grant is in the garden. So her voice was high-pitched as she started snatching up odd items within reach and clutching them to her chest. Underpants from the bed, the toy robot, Karen's glasses. She picked up the books from the bedside table and swore loudly. "Oh, for God's sake! And these are bloody library books. How overdue are these going to be?" She turned to Falk, red-faced and angry. "No one tells you this is how it's going to be, do they? Oh yeah, they're all so sorry for your loss, all so keen to pop round and get the gossip when it happens, but no one mentions having to go through your dead son's drawers and return their library books, do they? No one tells you how to cope with that." With a flash of guilt, Falk pictured the extra box of Karen and Billy's belongings he'd left outside the bedroom door. He plucked the books from Barb's hands, put them under his arm and steered her firmly out the bedroom. "I can look after that for you. Let's just..." He ushered her straight past Billy's room and emerged with some relief into the bright kitchen. He guided Barb to a stool. "Let's get you a cup of tea," he finished, pulling open the nearest cupboards. He hadn't the slightest idea what he might find there, but even crime scene kitchens usually had mugs. Barb watched him for a minute, then blew her nose and climbed off the stool. She patted his arm. I know where everything is." In the end, they had to settle for instant coffee, black. The fridge hadn't been emptied in over 2 weeks. "I never thanked you, Aaron," Barb said as they waited for the kettle to boil, "for helping us, opening an investigation into what happened." "Barb, I haven't done anything like that," Falk said. "You understand what I'm doing with Sergeant Racco is off the record, don't you? We're just asking you a couple of questions, nothing official." Oh, yes, of course, I completely understand that, she said in such a way that he could tell that she didn't. But you've got people wondering. That makes all the difference. It stirred things up. An image of Ellie flashed through Falk's mind, and he hoped Barb wouldn't come to regret it. Luke was always so grateful to have you as a friend, she said as she poured boiling water into 3 mugs. Thank you, he said simply, but Barb looked up at something in his tone. He was, she insisted. I know he wasn't good at saying it, but he needed someone like you in his life, someone calm with a sensible head on their shoulders. I always thought that's partly what attracted Luke to Karen. He saw the same sort of qualities in her. She automatically opened the right drawer and found a spoon. Did you ever meet Karen in the end? Falk shook his head. It's a shame. I think you really would have liked her. She reminded me of you in a lot of ways. I think sometimes she worried that she was a tiny bit, I don't know, dull maybe, that she was the only thing standing between Luke and his big ideas. But she wasn't. She was steady and really bright, that girl. And she was exactly what he needed. She kept my son grounded. You both did. Barb looked at Falk for a moment, her head cocked to the side a little sadly. You should have come back for their wedding, or any time. We missed you. He started to say that he had work, but something in her expression stopped the words on his lips. Honestly, I didn't feel like I'd be welcome. Barb Hadler took 2 large steps across the kitchen that had once been hers, reached out her hands and pulled Falk into her arms. She held him firmly until he felt a tension buried deep inside him start to waver. You, Aaron, are always welcome in my family, Barb said. Don't ever let yourself think otherwise. She pulled away, and for a moment she was the Barb Hadler of old. She placed 2 steaming mugs of coffee in his hands, tucked the library books under his arms, and nodded to the back door with a matriarchal glint in her eye. Let's take these out to my husband so I can tell him that if he wants this house cleaned, he can stop hiding in the barn and he can do it himself. I just really liked that, how you can have, she's very good at weaving emotion into various things, that you have this moment where this woman is really confused and she doesn't know what she's doing. She's really upset over the loss of her child and her grandson, to her being led away, that he is saving her, and then throughout the conversation she ends up saving him with a hug. I loved that. I loved moments like that. I really believed these characters were completely genuine. That especially Ellie. I loved the character of Ellie. But it felt so true, so believable, and the ending really took me aback. She does this really interesting thing with her construction in that she will literally play out what happens with various characters throughout the course of the book in the middle of a chapter. So you'll have like a paragraph where it's, normal font and everything, and explaining that a character's having a conversation with Falk, say he's interviewing someone, and then they'll say, okay, here's what happened, and then you'll have a paragraph that's in italics, and it's the third person, perspective of events playing out, and then it'll go back to the conversation, and it'll go back to the italics, and it will keep going back and forth, so you are actually reading the action as it happens. And she does that most beautifully, and most stunningly when the truth gets revealed across chapters 37 and 38. And I was so taken aback how everything was so confusing, and then everything just made complete sense. And I gasped, I cried, I yelled out, oh my god, that, you know, I was really taken in by this book, and I wasn't expecting to be. I was just, you know, going with the flow with this book, but I'm so glad that I have read it, and it just shows you that you can find some absolutely amazing gems throughout the various genres of literature. I actually bought this book in Stratford a few years ago because I got recommended by the guy at Waterstones, because he saw me looking at it and he's like, oh my god, you have to read that book, it's absolutely amazing. And it wasn't like he was like trying to make the sale, you know, whether it's like, oh, just push trying to sell this book. He genuinely felt excited. It was like when the woman who served me when I bought Jurassic Park, and her excitement got me really excited, and that's why, you know, I bought the book. But you know, things happen, and I just never got around to it. And I'm so glad I still had it. I am so glad I have read it, and it is an absolute little gem. So I really, really strongly recommend reading The Dry by Jane Harper. As I said, this is the first of 3 books that she currently has published. I gather she's going to be writing more. I definitely want to get hold of her other books. And next year, this is actually being released as a film. Reese Witherspoon apparently bought the rights for the film, and Aaron Falk, our main character, is being played by Eric Bana, which I'm quite excited about. So I will be looking out for a trailer for The Dry soon, and yeah, I hope it gets a wide release, and so I can see it. But if it's you know, I really think that it really could be a really good adaptation, but we'll just have to see what happens. But yes, please, please, please go out and read the book. I don't think you'll regret reading it. It's as it says on the cover, it's riveting. It's a breathless page turner, and one of the most stunning debuts I have ever read. And I will agree with that. So those are my thoughts on The Dry by Jane Harper. So have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. You can leave me a comment in the comments box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely up to you on each side. And I'll be back to announce the next book I'm going to be reading. And I've actually picked the next 3. Yes, so I will be announcing those in my other video. Alright then, bye guys.